And good morning. It's Sunday morning. Sunday morning. Yes, sir. Coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as on most of your podcast platforms such as Apple Podcast, Amazon Podcast, Spotify, you name it. We're on most of them. So thank you very much for listening. Welcome to the show, no matter what time zone you're in, whatever you're doing. I hope you're having a pleasant day so far. It's early in the morning for all you people out on the West Coast. Us on the East Coast, we're just getting up and getting ready to get to work and get things going. So, anyway, thanks again for listening. And of course, we have a lot to talk about today as well. Of course, the NBA is really getting cranked up now as far as the second round of the NBA playoffs is concerned. And of course, we had the big Belmont Stakes yesterday. And something very unusual happened yesterday at the golf tournament over there in Ohio at the Memorial. John Rahm, who was in the tournament, was told after the 18th hole, after the day was over for him, that that's it. He was finished because he had a positive COVID test coming back. So he was taken out of the rotation. So we're going to go into some detail about some of the sports books, how they're handling this situation, because as the bets are made prior to. Of course, people were betting before the tournament on Thursday. Then as it progressed into Friday, the odds change, more betting comes in. Then, of course, you had the betting on Saturday as well. So there's got to be a way of, compensating people somehow. You weren't expecting this to happen. So in any way, we'll go into more detail about that as well. But also, we're going to be talking about the NBA as far as two games on tap for today that we're going to take a close look at. One of them is going to be really tight that you're going to have to really keep your eye out on if you're going to be betting on it today, and that's the Hawks and the 76ers because of a very important player on Philadelphia. Whether he plays or not will make a big difference. Meanwhile, we'll also be looking at Dallas and the Clippers trying to round up their first round in the series as well. Now, as far as baseball is concerned, we don't have any bets on baseball today, so I got some kind of bad news, maybe good news for the baseball bettors today, as far as any kind of pro involvement in any games. It just didn't seem like any of the games on the schedule today pointed in that direction. So we're just going to don't want to throw any teams out at you just for the sake of mentioning some teams and hoping that they win or lose. So the story on baseball today, we have no bets at all, but we do have bets on the NBA, and we'll cover those as well. But as usual, if you've listened to the show before, one of the first things we do is we take a look at what happened yesterday as far as sports was concerned. From a betting standpoint, we know who won. You probably know who won or lost. But of course, maybe you're not paying too much attention as to how the other teams did as far as their being favorites or underdogs. So let's cover those as well. In the National Hockey League, the Islanders at a plus 124 on the money line upset the Bruins 4-1. They evened up their second round series at 2-2. Meanwhile, the Lightning at a minus 155 beat the Hurricanes 6-4, and there they take a 3-1 lead in that particular series. The favorites and the dogs split yesterday, 1-1, while the home teams went 2-0. The overs went 1-0, with Carolina and Tampa Bay going over the 5.5 goals limit, while Boston and the Islanders pushed on 5 goals. So there was a push on that one. Underdogs still lead 7-6 in the second round, but the favorites still lead over all of the playoffs 29-26. Road teams still lead, and their lead was kind of cut to 7-6 in this round, and the home roads are now tied at 29-29. The unders still lead, however, 7-5-1 in the round, and totally 31-26, which is just a little over 55%. Meanwhile, in the NBA, the Nets 4-point dogs in that game, covered in the 115-107 victory over the Milwaukee Bucks in the first game of the second round, and the number stayed under 239.5. Meanwhile, the favorites improved to 30-13 straight up and 28-15 against the spread. That against the spread total now is at 65%. Home teams took a 22-21 against the spread lead, and there were no zigzag games in game one because of no teams have played their first game. If you're involved in zigzag, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know anything about it or really not paying attention to it, there has to be a game before you start playing the zigzag because you're betting on the team that lost the day before. Now, for today's game between the Mavericks and the LA the LA Clippers. I just lost my train of thought there for a minute. LA Clippers. In that particular game, you will be having a game because they did play yesterday. So the Mavericks will be the play if you're playing zigzag today. The overs dipped to 22-20, and that's the story with the NBA. Meanwhile, in Major League Baseball, the favorites went 8-6 with the Twins and Royals closing as a pick'em. Again, when we talk about pick'ems, we're talking about the way they would be if you were betting from Las Vegas numbers, okay? The biggest upset, and it was huge, the Tigers, a plus 205 against the White Sox, 205, betting 100 to win 205. No problem there at all. There were smaller upsets, the Red Sox, the Indians, the Blue Jays, the Pirates, and the Braves. The favorites still lead, though. They're at 56.3%. The unders are 8-7, and that was for yesterday. And the over-unders are back to 500 as well at 418 apiece. So in Major League Baseball, that's the story for yesterday. We're not going to have anything for you today. It's just one of those situations where there's nothing worthwhile to take a look at. We just don't want to throw out a game to you and just to show you that there's another game to bet. The whole idea is to try to help you win. And of course, if we just pick out of a hat, you might as well do the same thing. So there's no plays for today as far as the pros are concerned. Nothing seems to fit into their platform, into their categories that they list in order to become a contender and to bet on as well. So that's the story there. And of course, we're going to take our first break. And again, if you're new to the show, you know we take 3 breaks in the show. Each one is of about 1 minute duration. And then, of course, when we come back, we're going to take a look at those 2 NBA games. And also, we're going to take some time to talk about contrarian betting. Getting a lot of emails because, especially from new listeners, they listen to the show. We talk about contrarian. And if you don't know too much about it, you kind of sit on not really totally understanding what the contrarian philosophy is all about. So we're going to take some time today because we have no baseball to talk about, that we're going to be talking about the contrarian philosophy. What is it that contrarians do to be called contrarians, the bettors, okay? So we'll go into some of that as well. But in the meantime, let's get that first break out of the way, and we come back looking at the 2 NBA games on tap for today. You'll be back in the zone right after this. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasting on most of your podcast platforms, such as Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Spreaker or Amazon Music, Amazon Radio. We're on all of them. So if you missed the show sometime, you can always go back and listen to the podcast. Just sometimes we're talking about sometimes in great detail about a certain aspect of sports betting, and you kind of get the general idea of what I was saying, but you didn't catch all the details. All you got to do is go into the podcast and bring yourself up to date on that as well. In the meantime, let's take a look at the NBA. We have two games we're taking a close look at, trying to see which direction the pros are going. And just as a little reminder, yesterday we had just one pick, and that was Milwaukee against the Nets, and the pros were on Milwaukee in that game. And of course, as you know by now, the Nets did win that game, and the Nets did cover. But in spite of that, just to give you a general idea as to how well that little system has been working, as we told you before, the favorites are at 64%. In other words, if you started playing as the playoffs began, if you started playing just the favorites, you would have had a 64% average. However, if you have stayed with the pros, as we've been telling you for every day as the game's been going on, you'd be at 72%. You would have 33 plays, 24 winners, and that's 72%, which is pretty good in most situations. So today we're looking at the Hawks and the Sixers and the Dallas Mavericks and the Los Angeles Clippers. So to begin with, the 1 o'clock game, the Atlanta Hawks and the Philadelphia 76ers. This is the first game of the Eastern Conference semifinals. Now, both of these teams are coming off of 4-1 series wins in the first round, with the Hawks beating the Knicks and the 76ers taking down the Wizards. Now, this afternoon series opener, the 76ers opened as a 2.5-point home favorite. We saw some early money laying the points with Philadelphia that drove the line up from being a 2.5 to a 3-point favorite. And then some Hawks money came in at 3, getting 3 points, and the buyback hit the market, and it dropped the line back from 3 down to 2.5. Now, the 76ers, they have value as a short favorite. A short favorite is 5 points or less. So far this season, the short favorites are at almost 72%, 71.4 to be exact. But there's something kind of different about this game. The elephant in this room, as we say, is the status of Joel Embiid, which is the big player for Philadelphia. Not only is he big, but he's also most important as far as scoring is concerned. He's questionable for today's game. So on this particular game, even though the pros have come in on the Hawks temporarily, okay, and they're kind of mild, not going very big on it so far, they're going to be sitting back and waiting to see whether or not Joel Embiid is going to play. And you should be doing the same thing. He's questionable for today's game. The line will move either up or down depending on his status. So the total, though, hasn't budged off the opener. It opened at 220.5. When the total is 220 or more, the over is at 69% so far in the postseason. Now, the 76ers are minus 200 as favorites to win the series. The Hawks are dogs at plus 160. So in this particular situation, and this doesn't come up that often, but every now and then there is a game where you really have to stop and really think about it and wait until the last possible moment or whenever you find out whether or not a certain player is going to be playing. And as we know, if we talk about basketball, we know it's a star-driven sport. One or two men on the team make a big difference, as you guys that bet on the Los Angeles Kings found out. The King was out okay, with the Lakers, I'm sorry, with the Lakers. And once that happened, and of course, he got injured. And then, of course, Davis didn't play. So you see what happened to them. They got eliminated. So it's most important that you watch and see whether or not Joel Embiid is going to play. Obviously, if he's going to play, Philadelphia is the play. If he's not, then of course it should go the other way with the Atlanta Hawks. So that's totally up to you if you're looking at it from that perspective. By this time, you may already have your favorite, and you want to bet it whatever way you've already thought about. But it's most important if you want to try to be on the plus side tonight, this afternoon. Make sure that you pay attention. Listen to the sports talk shows if you can get some answers. Twitter is a very good place to find out early enough as to what's going on. That news just spreads like wildfire on there. So again, in this particular situation, the pros did start out coming in with the Hawks. And of course, if the Embiid doesn't play, you're going to see that number jump up also. So that may go from being a 3-point dog up to maybe a 3.5 or even a 4-point dog in this particular situation. So you want to sit back and wait and see what's going to happen. So that's the story on that particular game. Again, for this particular situation, you have to really watch it closely yourself. It's a 1:00 game, so keep an eye on it. Meanwhile, at 3:30, you got the Mavericks against the Clippers. This is Game 7, the Western Conference first round. And after losing 2-0 in the series, the Clippers have kind of come back 3-1 since then, including that 104-97 win in Game 6 to force this Game 7, which will be the deciding game. Now, the line opened with Los Angeles, 6-point home favorite. Public kind of looks at this and they see a coin flip. They can't believe that the line is that high. They're going and betting and grabbing the points with the Mavericks. However, despite all this lopsided support, we've seen some of the books moving Clippers 6 to 6.5 points. This signals what we call a sharp fade the trendy dog value on the Clippers, because in this situation, they're a rare contrarian favorite with the reverse line movement. So the pros in this game are on the Los Angeles Clippers. The analytics point in that direction as well. Now, the playoff favorites are at 63% this postseason. The total opened at 212.5. The public is hammering the over and the low total. Yet we've seen the line drop down to 210 from 212.5. What this means, pro money on the under in this game. Now, remember, historically, unders have done very well in Game 7s. Most of the time, hey, they've already played 6 games. They're getting tired. The emphasis is more on defense. You don't want to do something crazy on offense. You want to keep everything tight because this is it. It's do or die. It's one and done, and you're out of there. And so the Game 7 unders are at 61%, not over the past year or the past couple of years, but over the past 10 years. Now, so far in this series between the Mavs and the Clippers, the under is 4-2 in this series. So the pros and the analytics both agree the game between the Clippers and the Mavericks goes to the Clippers. If you're going to be involved, if you like doing the zigzag and you're going to be betting this game, obviously the Dallas Mavericks would be your selection because they're the team that lost last time out. So that's how that kind of system kind of works. So anyway, that's the story there. 2 games we took a look at very closely. Hawks and 76ers. This one you're going to have to keep an eye on and see in which direction Joel Embiid goes. If he plays or he doesn't play, is definitely going to affect the line. So depending whether you're on betting the favorite or whether you're betting the underdog, that line will be jumping in either direction. And of course, between the Mavericks and the Clippers, in this game, the pros and the analytics all on the Clippers as well. So that's the story as far as basketball is concerned. And like I said, we had one play yesterday, had Milwaukee. It was a loser, but still, in spite of that loss yesterday, the system is still at 72% as far as win percentage is concerned. So that's the story there. We're going to take our second break, and when we come back, I'm going to take a quick look at what happened at the golf tournament yesterday and kind of give you some thoughts and ideas and some information on some of the sports books and how they're handling this particular situation. So we'll be back into the sports wagering zone right after this message. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo, coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Now, yesterday in golf, very interesting. You know, there have been a lot of instances of the COVID-19, how it has affected baseball, basketball, football even. But yesterday, we saw one of the most surprising situations ever, because Jon Rahm was forced to withdraw after his third round at the Memorial Tournament in Ohio due to a positive COVID-19 test. He was the resounding favorite. He was the favorite at the end of the third round after shooting an 8-under round to finish at 18 under par. Now, here he had a 6-shot lead at the time that he finished his round. So according to the Action Network, Rahm's in-play odds to win the tournament coming into the 18th tee were at minus 1,200 to 1 at BetMGM Sportsbooks, minus 1,200 on the money line. That's how he was looked at as far as winning the entire tournament, coming back the next day and actually finishing it off. A lot of sports books are paying out Rahm, people that bet on Rahm, that outright bets, as if he won. Some of them are doing that because he was so far ahead, because you never know what would have happened on the next day. He could have lost without a very close situation. It looked like he was definitely going in that direction. He was playing real well. But as with all exceptional situations like this one, you have to be sure to check the house rules at whatever sports book, wherever you placed your bet, if you did bet this game. DraftKings is going to be paying out all the tournament bets involving Rahm as winners. So you'll be treated as a winner, including the finishing position markets and the tournament matchups as well, okay? PointsBet, they'll be paying out the pre-tourney outright bets on Rahm as a winner as well. Rahm closed with the 12-1 odds at PointsBet. So if you bet at PointsBet and you got that 12-1 odds, you're a winner. They will pay you off. William Hill, they announced that they'll pay that tournament bets on Rahm, and they would also count them as winners, including a $3,000 wager from a bettor in Las Vegas who had him at 12-1, and they're going to pay that one off. Again, it's good PR to do that. It's most important from that perspective that they treat this that way. Otherwise, the sport, not that the sports bettor is not bet again. That's not going to happen. But at least it'll leave a sour taste, and maybe you'll leave that particular sports book and go to another one that is doing it. Okay, so William Hill had a release. They said that mobile bettors will see the payout in accounts within 48 hours. Those that were wagering in person can cash their tickets starting Monday, June 7th at the William Hill Sportsbook. So everybody seems to be doing everything right for you. FanDuel, they just called it, this was a bad beat payout. They're paying out all straight bets on Rahm as winners. Okay, so there you go as far as that's concerned. Of just to give you an idea that they're really coming through for you, which is really what it's all about, because they have to make sure that you as a customer of theirs, that you're being looked at. You had nothing to do with it. In all honesty, you came in, you bet a situation, and because of this virus situation, a player had to be removed who was so far ahead that chances of him winning the next day with the tournament finally would have come to an end, that they said, okay, he was so far ahead at that point in time. What we're going to do is we're going to pay you off. So good luck. I'm glad they handled it that way. If you did, you should be very thankful for it. And of course, like I said, the sports books did the right thing in this situation, because once again, you had no idea what was going to happen. You honestly bet it. There was no collusion. There was nobody trying to, squeak by or anything or do something wrong or kind of shady. It all worked out that way. So they took care of it. They're going to take care of you. And I'm very glad to hear that. You should be too, which shows you that they do have a heart sometimes as well. So anyway, that's the story with the golf situation. If you bet on Rahm, you're going to get your money. So no problem there at all. Anyway, let's take our final break, and we come back. We're going to take a quick look at some contrarian philosophy, give you an idea what us contrarians are all about. So right after this message, we will be back into the sports wagering zone. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you for listening. Coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, we get a lot of emails from new bettors because more and more are coming in. Louisiana has passed their legislation. There'll be more people coming in. So as far as a contrarian, we kind of feel we'd like to see that. So we've been getting a lot of emails from people that are new into the sport. Maybe they were casual bettors here and there, and they keep hearing us talking about contrarians. We're a contrarian group here, okay? So kind of explain just a little bit about it anyway. So To make sports betting a successful and a sustainable operation, you have to have a strategy. So if you want to do it, you have to do it right. You pick a strategy, you stay with it, and you see how it goes. Okay. If it's working for you, that's fine. You stay with it. Maybe you might want to tweak it somewhere along the line and try something and maybe make it a little better, or just kind of start switching. If you're not doing that well, you got to do more than just tweaking it. You may have to make some big adjustments. But if you just chase what's hot, okay, and you bet against whatever is cold, and you don't have a solid or a consistent philosophy or plan, you might as well be flipping a coin. I mean, it's just the same way. You're blowing in the wind. You're going rudderless in a sea of unpredictability. That's for certain. You're also constantly playing catch up and betting in a reactionary manner, not in a predictive fashion. That's most important. And without a smart blueprint or a good plan that you have, you're never going to see results that you're hoping to get, unless you're hoping to lose. Okay. I'm sure that most of you do want to win. That's what you're doing it for. There are many different betting philosophies. One of the best ways to win over the long haul, not just from day to day, but over a long period of time of betting, is to embrace the contrarian betting principles. Now, in Webster's dictionary, he talks about a contrarian as a person who takes a contrary position or a contrary attitude, okay? In other words, if everybody else is doing, saying, or thinking one thing, a contrarian is going to do the opposite. Contrarians think differently from the general public. They challenge these preconceived notions, reject those conventional wisdom of what's going to happen. They refuse to conform to follow the crowd. We take unpopular opinions, and we aren't afraid to buck whatever the general public or the majority is saying. In the betting world, being a contrarian means that you're betting against the average citizen, the average bettor who pick games based on gut instinct. They have biases. And you know what? They rarely win. They do win, but not as often to make a profit. Think of it this way. If you walk into a bar, you see a crowd, row people watching a game, you want to be on the opposite side of whoever they're rooting for. Now, some might say being a contrarian is just, just blindly going against whatever everybody else is doing. But in betting, there's a method to this madness. By going contrarian, as a bettor, you can expect additional value because you're capitalizing on this bias that the public has. You're taking advantage of shaded and inflated lines, and you're getting better numbers in the form of additional points or better payouts on the money line. Now, best of all, contrarian bettors place themselves on the side of the house. And you know that old expression, the house always wins. Now, contrarian betting is also known as, betting against the public, which is what they do. Fading the public or simply going contrarian is a sound betting strategy for one simple reason. More times than not, the public loses. How do we know this? Because if the average bettor were successful, they would all quit their day jobs, become full-time sports bettors as well. But they don't. Year after year, Vegas and the sports books make unfathomable amounts of money, huge amounts of money. And if you've ever been to Vegas, you see those buildings that they have there, okay? And the vast majority of the profits, to have these things built and going and keep strong, is actually coming from the pockets of the average bettor. Because as a result, the unpopular team getting the minority of bets provides a lot of value than the popular team getting the majority of the bets. So with that being said, it's a misconception that the public never wins. But no mistake about it. if they do win from time to time, and they will, because betting goes in cycles. With a series, you go ups and downs. You have a couple of winners, you have a couple of losers, one winner, one loser. There's going to be days or even weeks or even months where the public bettors do very, very well and they turn a profit. Take a look at as far as the NHL was concerned this season. The people that were betting on the favorites did very, very well. Now, there are NFL Sundays when the popular favorites sweep the board and they cover nearly every game. But you know what? Over the course of the long haul, average bettors end up losing in the end. This is why you want to bet against them and not with them. So that kind of gives you a little idea, a little thought as far as what contrarian betting is about. It's not for everybody. It should be for everybody, but if everybody did, then there'd be no contrarians. Okay, so the idea is this: you're betting against the public. They have biases. These biases have been coming out for decades. The sportsbook know these biases, and of course they live by them because that's how they make their money. So that's the story there. And once again, let's take a quick look at the two games we looked at in the NBA for the playoffs today. You got the Hawks against the 76ers. In that one, in the early hours, the pros seem to be leaning toward the Hawks, but very slightly, because we still don't know whether Joel Embiid is going to be playing or not. Once you find out, that's going to affect the number and the odds on this game. So whether you're betting with or against the Hawks, wait and see what the line is going to be. Because if Embiid doesn't play, the line's going to go probably from 3.5, probably to 4 on your side. So you want to get the best line possible. So kind of be cautious with that one as to which direction you want to go. And also the other game between the Mavericks and the Clippers, the pros and the analytics all seem to point to the Clippers winning Game 7. So that's the story for today. It's Sunday. Wherever you are, I hope it's a beautiful day. Wherever you're going out, spending some time with your family. If you're going to be betting, I wish you the best of luck. Of course, we want you to win. That's why we're trying to tell you. Give you some hints, some ideas as to how you can be a winner. One of the things to keep in mind, watch that Philadelphia game today. Watch the pregame. Make sure you find out as to whether or not Joel Embiid is going to be playing, because that will definitely affect the numbers. It will probably affect the game as well. Okay, so that's the story. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow, Monday through Friday. We're here at 12 noon Eastern Time. Saturdays and Sundays, 11 a.m. So if you're betting, I wish you the best of luck. I also wish you a best of the day as well. And of course, if you're doing well, that's going to be a good day. So thanks for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow at 12 noon on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Goodbye, everybody.